Hello and welcome to the Holy Rivals Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me is my partner in crime, the Wild Ute. How you doing today, Ute?
What's up, Holy Rivals? How you doing?
Oh boy, what a weekend! There's a lot of news that came out of this last weekend and the end of last week, but today we're actually going to recap our recent short that we did last Monday, and
Absolutely.
then we want to preview the short that we just created this afternoon. Before we do that, I wanted to do some housekeeping stuff right away. As everybody can see, I've got shelves going up behind me, and I've been lazy not to finish off the last little piece. But if you guys want to send your helmets, your school's emblems, anything that I can put up behind me that'll represent your school, please send me a DM in Twitter, and we'll negotiate and figure out how to get that over to me. I'll just give you my address or something. It's not a big deal. Another thing that I wanted to show everybody and take a second was I want to bring up our. This is our page, one of our two pages. Now, what we're trying to do is we're going to start migrating the Holy Rivals to a separate YouTube page. We're not doing it yet. Nothing changes. You guys don't have to change any of your actions. I'm just letting you know that eventually we're going to have two, and one will be for Rivals and one will be for Mafia. And also, I've had questions on people want to know where to sign up as subscribers. This join button right here, it's the most obnoxious little button you've ever seen in your life. I mean, you'd think for subscriptions, they'd give you something really big to key on. But it's the little join button. And if you do that join button, it'll take you to the 3 subscriber levels and give you a little understanding of what you'd be signing up for. But as you know, if you subscribe, your comments and suggestions are always first when we bring them up, and you are a part of the show. And I want to make sure everybody knows that they can do that. Or again, super chats is another way you can get your comments read. All right, I think that's all the housekeeping I got right now. Why don't you preview kind of what we just finished for our last short?
Before we get into that, kudos to you, Bomber. It's kind of like remembering Golden Blue Dude having stuff in the background. He was really big into that. We missed Golden Blue Dude a lot and everything, so that's kind of like it's a tip of the cap to him. I think doing
It's
something.
absolutely an homage. It is. I didn't come up with the idea. I got it from him. Absolutely.
So yeah, very cool. Well, yeah, let's get into it, guys. Let's get into some data.
All
All right.
right, let me make this big. So this is a recap of our short last week.
Yeah, sure is a recap of the short. So we're really just going to do a summary of the data in here, and then we're going to get to some new stuff. And just a disclaimer, y'all, we just recorded a short about 30 minutes ago. You guys are going to have to check this out tomorrow. It's about CU and looking how sturdy they are, looking to see if they're a really good fit for the Big 12. It was really good. You have to check it out. But we're going to give you a little taste of that at the end of this. Okay, let's jump in though.
Oh,
So
wait, 1 second. Can I interrupt you?
for
Let's do
sure,
call outs really quick. I apologize, you.
yeah,
I should have done that in my housekeeping. Blake Phillips is always the first here. Appreciate that, Blake. I'm not sure if you do those the second after I post them, but we're glad to have you here. Robert's in the house. Been a minute. Larry's in the house. Way to see you, Larry. Thanks for being here. Immaculate. Thanks for being here. We'll just run down, see if I missed anybody else that's new. All right, that's where we're starting off. Now you can go. I apologize, you.
yeah. So I think that a lot of our community members and stuff can understand these bar graphs by now because we do think this is important. And when we talk about the realignment stool. I'm going to grab this realignment stool. You remember this from last time here. We're talking about one of the legs of realignment. We're talking about the academic leg, which is just one piece of realignment, but it's a big one, and we need to know what's going on here. We're talking about research dollars here and the 10-year research expenditures per the National Science Foundation here. So as you can see, this is the top flight here. This is our tier one, the most research that the P5 does, what the ACC, the Big 12, and the Pac-12 do. So you can see that Washington, based on just the facts of the NSF, no adjustments, and I know some folks want to adjust here and there. I'm just taking the facts from the NSF. Washington is the top dog, the purple dog here. And then really like the key takeaway, though, here is where's the Big Ten average? The Big Ten average is kind of right smack in there, yellow barred. And look at the schools that are kind of hovering around that, Bomber, both left and right. These are a lot of the schools that we are talking about a lot in realignment to go to the Big Ten, right? And it seems like there's a pretty good academic alignment fit with the research spending, with the philosophy of the schools here, maybe their mission and stuff. So that's something to note here. And you can see schools like Cal, UNC, Stanford, and certainly Washington look like they could be really easy alignment fits in the Big Ten.
Immaculate has a comment here. He says, I want to put a small spotlight on Pitt. So the Pitt is huge, right? I mean, that's an amazing amount of research dollars, and they're right in the fires of possibly the ACC blowing up. So do they fit in the Big Ten better than maybe falling to the Big 12, which I say falling because the money's different.
The money's different, right? I would have said a hard no before this project here, but looking at this graph, I can kind of understand why some Pitt fans have pushed back on the idea of going to the Big 12, because they do a lot of research, right? This is big time, top 5, right? So they probably feel like academically they're above a Big Ten team, the average, right? So I could see them feel that way. There's other aspects though, y'all. We're talking about the legs of the realignment stool. I'm not sure that Pitt really, if you looked at all those legs, fits in the Big Ten and other means. But academically, I think they do. And this shows it.
Do you want to open up for calls?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me do that. And then I'll move to the next slide. Or what's the next slide you want me to move to?
Yeah, let's move to the next.
Okay.
All right. And here, really interesting that the SEC, you would think they wouldn't do, a lot of research necessarily. This was the SEC average got bumped a little bit by Texas, which does a lot of research. And the Big 12's hurt a little bit with Texas leaving. But you can kind of see where the SEC fits in line with, your Miamis and Wazoos. And then CU right there. CU and Cincy, they do pretty much the exact same level of research and the rankings and everything. So pretty like-minded institutions there. But yeah, just take a look at this. This is where the private schools kind of come into play. Notre Dame, Wake Forest, and Stanford on the first really start showing up here. And I know a lot of private schools don't necessarily focus on research, federally funded research, but something to note there. Just kind of where they
so we've got Immaculate that's joined, and then we got Robert has joined us as well. We're going to do these calls one at a time tonight, so we don't get huge panels. So Immaculate, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're thinking tonight? And it doesn't have to be about the slides. What's on your mind?
Oh, well, I'm actually looking at these slides. These are really well done. I like these.
Immaculate?
There was some other stuff that I was talking about not that long ago, but I got to tell you, this is kind of the story for me right now.
Yeah, this is one aspect of it. This is the research, which falls under the academic, part of the leg here for the realignment stool. But this is eye-opening, and this is just fact-based, right? It's not an opinion.
For a selfish basis, could you do a quick little look comparison for me? You have both of them. How does Iowa State look compared to Pitt?
Okay, so Bomber, can you go to the first?
I can, yeah. Give me a sec.
Yep. Yo, this is a total eyesore. There's so much. Go to the previous, actually.
Oh, oops, sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't know if you could see both there.
Wait, what? Which one? I can't do them.
So Pitt's at 10, almost 10, like 9.
Here, let me do this one.
Here. Okay, let's zoom in.
This one's uglier than hell, though.
I know, Bomber. This is.
That's all right. All right, that's the best we can do.
This is what you want.
Oh, okay. Sweet. So I don't mind ugly. I just like the stats.
So Pitt is here.
Yeah, Pitt's way up there. Oof.
Yeah, it's a massive difference, right?
That affects my scenario. All right, that was just for selfish reasons.
Yeah, okay. Really surprising though. I don't think anyone anticipated Pitt to fall into this realm, but yeah, they are a heavy hitter.
I think Pitt's my number 25 now for the Big Ten. So.
The number 25 on the Immaculate.
So, hang on a second. So let's talk about that, because number 25 for a long time was the Utah Utes.
No. Utah's like 20. Well, see, since we're going there, Utah, if they make it to the Big Ten, would be like 23.
Okay, because I think when we did a count, I unless you've changed it, originally Utah was that 25th team.
There's the last ones are basically strategic picks to round out divisions, and divisions will be geographic.
Right.
So that's why I put USC higher than Pitt. I mean, there's no way I would put USC as a later pick then. I'm just saying Pitt fills like the last spot. The 25th spot's kind of a problem for the Big Ten. And I wouldn't put them with Penn State, but I'd put them over there with Ohio State, Michigan State, and probably like Indiana as
How
a
about
5 team.
Virginia Tech, guys? Look at Virginia Tech. That's the one that kind of stood out to me too. I didn't realize that they did so much research. And
yeah, they are. And funny enough, their research numbers are higher than every single school that got into the AAU.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because
yeah,
that's
but
politics.
That's politics.
That's right.
And that's why when people say, oh, Notre Dame got there on their own. No.
Right.
No. You know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say names.
Right. No, we got you. All right.
Robert, yeah. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Yeah, I'll bring Robert in. I'm going to mute you, Immaculate. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
All right, cool. All right. Now we've got Robert. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Hold up.
There you go.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, okay. Now I see. I'm already good.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting looking at. The only thing I can see as a roadblock for Pitt is really the Penn State.
Yeah.
That's the only big roadblock I can say for Pitt. But the rest of them, I'm like surprised a little bit. I didn't expect like Arizona to be that high on research or Arizona State to be below the Big Ten a little bit. That was a little bit of a surprise.
Right. There's some really big boys in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
If we had all the stack rankings, if we included Big Ten schools, they'd be very high. Like the top of the top. Michigan is massive. Michigan is huge.
Let's talk about what these numbers actually mean, though, right? Let's clarify. These are just research numbers. These are not the rankings of the universities. Has nothing to do with how good a university is or not. This isn't even a competition between these schools for research. This is just what's been reported by the National Science Foundation, what the research dollars are over the last 10 years. So let's not get silly, right? At the end of the day, this has nothing necessarily to do with athletic competitiveness. It does have something to do with these presidents and how they think they might want to make a decision to move conferences. That's it. To be very clear.
Bingo.
All right. Now we can move to another slide here, right?
Let's move on.
Talk about. So this is the Colorado slide. We're going to focus on Colorado in the next isolation one. But what do you want to call out here?
Take a good look at this Colorado figure here and just where they're located with other schools. Put that in the back of your mind because we're going to come back to this in a second. You guys are going to want to check this out. All right, let's move on to the next one. Bomber. All right, so here you can see like the third tier really of the universities that don't focus as much on research. I mean, Oregon, as we've kind of talked about before, they are AAU. They've been AAU for a long time, but they haven't focused as much on research. And there's complexities associated with that. But the fact is they just don't. So you'd think that maybe that's a challenge for the Big, as far as on the academic side of the realignment stool. Then you can see with some of the other private schools that don't focus as much on research, nothing to do with academic rankings. I'm going to say that over and over again because we're not talking about quality of the education. We're talking about the doctoral students and the people at the universities actually doing research and development and creating new things. That's a philosophical idea for a school. So it's nothing about the quality of the education by any means, it's just the approach of the school. You can see a lot of Big 12 teams fit in here, and you can see maybe other schools that might align with the Big 12 academically.
If you want to get your comment read, we have a lot of people in chat. Please either give us a super chat or you can subscribe to the channel. And all your chats, I'll try to highlight and manage. We got a comment here from Larry, who's one of our members. He says, for your information, the entire Colorado universities as a whole did $1.4 billion just in the calendar year 2021.
Yeah, so Colorado has some, if you want to count technicalities, there might be a medical school over here that's not reporting to the financial statements of the university. But there's some technicalities here, y'all. This is just what Boulder is doing, CU Boulder is doing and stuff. You can go look at the data. There's nothing to hide here. Go to the National Science Foundation. Check it out yourself. This is just facts. And yeah.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say there's another comment here from Daniel Gygax. He says, knowing the academics, I know not a single one cares if they played football against them. It's all in what they are working on and how much money they can bring to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're talking about other aspects of realignment. This is not everything. This is just a thing to be aware of, and a thing that there's just not a lot of information around. This is completely informational. It's educational. That's it. We're not saying anyone's falling anywhere. It's what fits academically.
And let's quickly cover the expansion candidates. And Immaculate, I've unmuted you. Since it's just the two of you, we can do a small panel. This one is all the expansion candidates that have been talked about for the last, I don't know how long, right? It's been a while. Addison, if you're trying to connect, hang on, let me interrupt really quick. Addison tried to connect the other day when we were talking about those Tennessee penalties, and he's joined us again tonight. But every time I try to click on you, Addison, it doesn't like your connection for some reason. So if there's a different, can you join from your computer or maybe a different phone? For some reason, it's just not connecting. All right, expansion candidates that we've been talking about recently. Go ahead.
Yep, here's the expansion candidates, and the one that's just sticking out like a sore thumb is SMU. When you look at the pack average here, like second to left, versus where SMU's at with research, this tells the story of really what the focus is for SMU versus the Pac-12 schools. This isn't even including UCLA and USC. If it did include USC and UCLA, that pack figure would be much higher because those are big boy players now in the Big Ten. So SMU has just had a little bit different philosophy academically. I think that they're trying to move away from that and be more research oriented. But they do less research than Boise State. And Boise State gets a bad rap for education stuff. And it's unfair. So it's just something that stands out. What do you guys think about this?
I would say a different school stands out like a sore thumb to me. And that would be USF.
Yeah, right?
They are above the SEC average. For a 25, they make a good number 25.
They came out of nowhere. They're building a stadium. Don't you think they need a little bit of run behind them before you jump them all the way from Division III all the way to the King's table?
Not if I'm going to put them in a division with Florida State, Florida, Georgia, and Georgia Tech. Then I just need you to lose.
I find it hard to believe that Florida State would be okay with USF.
Well, it's not Miami.
No, I know.
They're not going to overwhelm you in brand. Their new stadium,
right?
It's not going to be a big stadium. It's going to be a very good looking stadium, but it's not going to be big. It's like, one of these 30,000, 35,000 types.
Right.
So they're not going to overtake. They're not a threat, but they're now AAU. They're higher than the average there. I mean, some of the other schools that they might want to get, that might be something more to them. Like this, we'll add these guys. I mean, to us, we're like USF. What does that mean? But as an institution, it's not bad.
No, not bad at all. Sneaky good, isn't it?
Yeah.
USF.
Yeah. If you just don't look at the name USF, if you don't look at that, it's kind of.
I think if you looked at the other legs of the realignment stool, they wouldn't really stack up quite as much. They're just a power player in this research area, and they're in the AAU helps them out. I don't know if they're ever going to be a SEC candidate. I just don't think that they bring enough value.
They're not an SEC candidate now. Like I would never put them on that level. Like this is an SEC candidate, but if you're at looking for a number 25 just to strategically round out a division, and now you don't necessarily need them to be big in a whole lot. You just need them to fill that spot and maybe boost you up in other ways, like your academic ratings, your whatever. Like really, you just need them to lose to Florida and Florida State.
Robert, what do you think? You have any opinions about this?
Yeah, what Immaculate was saying, I agree with. You need every conference, if you're going to split the conference into two like that, putting USF in that group he was talking about would make sense. You have your own Vanderbilt right in that section of the conference.
Basically. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I saw what he was talking about.
Yeah, that's his contention for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like the way I look at it, but I look at it in hierarchies. You got to have hierarchy. Like people on the Big Ten, but the Big Ten understands hierarchy, and it's look at the bank that they're getting for it. So I think that you're always looking to build hierarchy. And if you're going to build 5-team divisions in the future like that, you got to think about that. Do you really want to put a Georgia, Florida, Florida State, Clemson, I don't know, an Auburn in the same division? I mean,
No,
you're gonna
not
have
really.
some.
You don't
You're
wanna-
gonna have some big. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have some big brands that just get crushed.
Yeah,
think
and it's
that,
not going to
Larry-
help the playoffs or anything like that.
So,
Larry brings up a good point here, y'all. So he's saying that really USF's kind of smack dab between a couple of football brands here, like Florida State and even the Tampa Bay Bucks. And yeah, it's a really interesting case study. It'd be tough for USF to get into one of the big conferences, I would think, just based on the lack of brand value strictly. Not, I mean, academics is just one part of this. There's a lot more. Maybe if they would take a hefty pay cut for the next 50 years, qualifier to get in.
Let's talk about something different really quick before we get off this slide. By the way, we reviewed all these in a short we did last Monday. We did another short today that's going to be about Colorado specifically, but we want to invite you guys to keep coming back. Also, if you want your comment to be read, super chats really stand out, and so do subscribers. Otherwise, we try to get to the ones that aren't highlighted as much as we can. UConn right now, I've heard some things, and I know that maybe you guys have heard some stuff that their star's sort of falling right now. Them as an expansion candidate just with Colorado is dimming. And the reason for that is because, and I wish Mo and Vision was here, it's that perception, that perception of what their inclusion of the Big 12 would do to the conference as a whole. What do you guys think about that? And kind of where do you think, I've on record as saying if the Big 12 gets 3 of the Pac-12 schools, I could totally see the UConn Huskies coming in. But if they don't, I just don't think there's enough bandwidth for them. What do you guys think?
Robert?
Personally, I think with UConn, I remember when they played in the Big East when they still had football, they improved very fast. So if they do add them as another team coming in, I can see it doing pretty decent. But if it's just them by themselves, no, I don't see that. But and for example, like if there was only one team, you can bring him in as the second team, or if you only got 3 out of the 4, they could be the 4th team. I could see that. But anything else other than that, I don't see it.
Immaculate?
Yep, I confer. I agree. I've only ever saw them as like a pairing. Like if you only could get Colorado at first, then you'd take them because ESPN's going to help cover it because it's state of Connecticut. But on their own coming over. So what it tells me is if their number is actually going down, I don't know if this is true or not, if there's less talk about it or whatever, probably tell me that Arizona's being more serious.
Right. I just don't think it has enough gravitas to carry. And I also contend this, and this is a personal thing. This doesn't come from anybody else's head, just my crazy one. That is, if they would have grabbed hold as an entire university and fans and said, yes, we immediately want to be into the Big 12, do whatever we can to get in there, I personally believe their star might have risen and stayed high. Their fans are lukewarm at best about joining the Big 12. And that, along with, unfortunately, the football, which is driving realignment, those two things, I think that's really hurt them.
Why?
And plus with UConn, it's a little bit different because UConn's mostly pushed by basketball too.
Right.
In recent years.
Right.
So it's even worse for them.
Well,
when you talk about for the good of the school, but we do great in the Big East in basketball. Why would we need to leave?
Right. You had a question?
Like what? I don't understand why UConn's pushing back so much. I've seen the same thing. I've had conversations about this with UConn fans as a Ute, kind of a secondary person out here and stuff. And there's about a 50-50, view of this, staying in the Big East versus going to the Big 12. I don't know why. I mean, I guess they've had basketball success. That's they've won the championship and everything, but the money, right? I just don't understand.
Yeah, but also you have to think in the Big East. You have to think about it in the Big East. All the schools that are in the Big East in basketball are all private universities. They're the only public university in the whole conference. Too. That's another thing you have to think about on that, because they're rubbing arms with private universities, and they're the last one that survived out of the public universities.
Do you think they want to be that? Like, what are they getting out of that, you think, Robert?
They might be. I'm saying that's a what if, because you have to think I was raised in that side of the state of Pennsylvania, and most all those schools are right around that Philadelphia area.
You think they're kind of smug?
They don't want,
like they're kind of saying like, "Oh, we're a little bit better." Is there a little arrogance?
No, I think it's more of the connections more than the
I
money
think so.
or the smugness. It's more of the connections.
Yeah,
That's the number one thing I'm thinking is most likely, because
Georgetown,
and
Providence,
they have
St.
major
John's,
connections throughout this.
They're all religious
Villanova.
schools. They just don't have any connection to the schools except for basketball. That's the only two things that are common is basketball. So,
would you say that's a fan thing, alumni thing, or would you say even administration doesn't really want to join the Big 12?
What I've heard is from Sidelines UConn, and he is very clear in saying he wants to be in the Big 12 if there's an opportunity there. You know, nobody's saying there's an opportunity. It's been talked about. Everybody knows Brett Yormark has talked about it as a good thing. The presidents aren't coming along. So what he's told me in confidence is that there's a lot of people that are the fans. They're just idiots. They don't understand why football is driving the bus. They're the one lone guy at the end of the train station that says, I'm going to stop you with just a placard in my hand. Basketball, they think, should rule the day. And that just, I mean, it's like spitting in the wind. It doesn't do you any good. It comes right back and hits you. Football is all that anybody cares about, as you just said.
Yeah, Bomber, I can explain why on that too. I can explain a little bit about that. You have to think, they're thinking like the A10 back in the day with when you had Villanova, St. John's, LaSalle and everything. All those Pennsylvania Catholic schools, and also UConn. I think that a little bit of that rubbed off on them, that they think this is our pride, this is our lineage, and they must protect this Big East lineage at any reaches.
Right.
Even the fans are like that. I've seen this plenty of times before.
I think the admin would jump to the Big 12. I really do, just because of the money, the access, and everything the Big 12 would offer. I just don't think the fans have kind of got there yet.
Yeah, and I think also Connecticut's thinking they might not have the same connections as these private institutions that are religious, all those type of connections they have. Right. They're like, we don't know what connections they have, but we know what connections we have right now, too, at the same time.
Go ahead. You.
I'm just looking at maybe changing the conversation a little bit.
I was just going to do that. I was just going to do that. Let's do Devil Frog's comment first. We'll work our way down. He says, so the Pac, looking at this chart, the Pac should poach CSU, SDSU, UNLV, and Boise State. There you go. There's your next.
You're bad, Devil Frog.
Devil Frog saying, there's your alignment package right there. I could see those road trips down to Las Vegas. You'd love that. I know you'd love those.
We play these old teams.
All right, we'll move right along.
Yeah, nice 100-degree weather trip down to Las Vegas.
Thank you, Frog. That was funny. Okay, Pickles says, I think the hesitancy is if you sign with the Big 12. He's talking about, for that matter, any school that would sign with the Big 12. You have to take that GOR. I personally don't think that's a big deal, but very long-term commitment. Only reason not to is if there's a true belief a better option opens up. Does anybody see, for these schools that are mentioned here, UConn all the way down to SMU, do any of them have other options?
No.
I don't see anybody coming knocking on their door, so I don't think it matters.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Nobody disagrees. Greg Swaim. Hey, Greg, what's up, buddy?
What's up, Greg?
Greg.
He says the Pac-12 is unbelievable and unwarranted arrogance is just truly amazing. He doesn't like the Pac-12, in case you don't know Greg very well. Since coaches don't get fired for average
Greg's a big Utes fan, I thought. Greg's
average research dollars. So Greg's bringing the conversation back to the ground. Research dollars don't win football games. All right.
Correct.
Let's move on to the next one. This is Pac-12 Pilgrim, who's one of our subscribers. So his comment is always going to be read. SMU is the strangest ad to me, unless for some reason the Pac-12 will be receiving carrier fees for them. If they don't have ESPN or over-the-air contracts, Pac-12 network doesn't bring in large carriage money. What do you guys think about that statement?
That sounds about right.
I've only ever saw the talk about SMU and those schools as a threat by the Pac. to do the same thing that the Big 12 was willing to do when it picked up 4 new G schools.
Right.
They were kind of threatening to do the same. People don't look at it this way. They don't care about the P5 votes, but I do. That's what I saw as the genius part of what the Big 12 did, is that they had the balls to actually add those schools, and they created 4 new votes.
Right.
I think the PAC was just threatening to do that, but they don't actually have it to actually do it. And everyone,
I agree
it's just
with
like
that.
it's just calling their bluff.
Yeah.
But I think that's where they were going. Is like, hey, we'll get these 4 schools and make 4 new votes if you don't give us our contracts. And everyone's like, do it. Go do it.
Call our bluff. Right.
Go ahead. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
they're just
Do it now.
laughing at them because at least with the Big 12, they picked up schools that are deserving to be considered P5.
Yeah.
These ones are not quite there yet. They need more time this season.
Yeah, all 4 that the Big 12 pulled up are viable, certifiable Cinderella schools that have been relevant for a long time. I mean, Boise hasn't been that relevant lately. It's SMU, long time. San Diego State, not really for football. So
Right.
UNLV, not relevant for football. So it's a apples and oranges comparison.
Correct.
Sergeant Pickles, another comment. He says B12 vitamin, right? Big 12 is smart to lean on basketball. It's been excellent. Unfortunately, regular season hoops doesn't play the bills, and having a strong conference top to bottom means teams will cannibalize one another. Boy, hasn't that been the lifestyle in the Pac-12?
That's been life.
That has been life in the Pac-12, cannibalizing each other.
That's the case against Gonzaga, in my view, too. I mean, Gonzaga doesn't bring a ton elsewhere as a basketball, and all of a sudden you bring another big brand in and cannibalize. Are you really going to enhance the value if you bring in Gonzaga? I don't know.
Right. Addison here is commenting, I'm sorry, I wish there was a different way you could connect. That's the only way I have to get you in. I don't have a phone call link, Addison. But if you keep trying that link again, maybe you just have to activate your microphone. I think that might be the only issue. But he says he enjoys the show, and he tried joining, and it's just not working. So I'd love to talk to you if you can.
I can't wait to get him on to talk about this crazy stuff at Tennessee.
Right. I agree.
They were putting cash in Chick-fil-A bags and giving them to recruits before the NIL. That's some crazy stuff. I mean, I want to discuss that when you can.
Well, he
jump
says,
on this.
at least he says he's feeling better from the Tennessee hangover. So that's good. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to change, and we're going to go to the next slide that we want to talk about.
Oh,
this is
gosh.
That's going to bring.
Yes.
This is going to be shocking. This is going to be shocking. People are going to. I'm going to minimize everybody, and I'm going to mute Immaculate and Robert. So I'm going to mute you guys for a minute.
Okay.
All right. Glasses off. This is a little taste of our short tomorrow. Okay. This is a little bit of that. You're going to have to tune in to watch this. I think this is pretty telling here.
Pickles is a new member, by the way.
Oh, Pickles, yes.
Pickles, thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks,
I
Pickles.
appreciate it. Thank you. I don't have the claps that you hear other places, but I really appreciate you being here. You've been a loyal member, and we really, really appreciate it. We've got bigger things coming, so thanks for joining. Really, really appreciate you being here. All right, go ahead, you.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. So wanted to take a look at how CU is performed in the academic rankings in the Big 12 versus the Pac-12 eras. And I hadn't seen anything on this before, but I did you can see to the right side, this is a graph that's laying out the research spending according to the NSF. We've seen that. It's the same bars that we're talking about. But you can see the X marks the spots when they joined the Pac-12. Okay, so you can see there's been upgrowth in research spending. But if you look at the growth rates, actually, that I've kind of provided to the left, it's the lowest bullet, research ranking NSF. The growth rates were actually higher in the Big 12 as far as research spending than in the Pac-12. They were growing at about 5.57% per year in the Big 12 from 2004 to 2010. They jump in 2011 to the Pac-12, and they're growing at about 3.12%. I would have thought that would have been much higher on the Pac-12 side with the focus strictly on research and the alignment with your Stanfords and Cals and Utahs, etc. That was a big shock to me, but maybe even a bigger shock was just the rankings, historical rankings versus current rankings. So U.S. News is a big one. When we're looking on the academic side, we're talking about just one leg of the stool. Again, this isn't everything, but we're getting here, or we're getting to the meat of the academic leg of the stool, looking at the rankings too. So U.S. News, This year, most recent ranking, CU is 97th. And back in 2010, when they were in the Big 12, the last year of the Big 12, according to U.S. News, they were 77th. They've decreased 20 spots since they've been in the Pac-12. 20 spots since being in the Pac-12. That's surprising to me.
I'm trying not to laugh. I'm trying not to laugh.
Yeah,
you're speechless, right?
Pac-12 community, like, don't hate me or anything. I'm a Utah fan. I love the Pac. I just care about facts. Okay, and we need to be honest about this. The question you ask yourself: has CU really benefited academically since being in the Pac? That's my question. That's not on this. That's what I'm looking at this. That's why I'm so surprised. We'll go down and talk about some more of these things. The Forbes ranking this year for CU is 103. That's another big one, ranking academically. And the Shanghai World Rankings is very respected around the globe, and CU's fared really well. They're 51st in 2022. But y'all, back in 2010, they were 32nd, back in the Big 12 era. So they're actually not ranking as good now as they did when they left the Big 12. Research dollar expenditure wise, growth rate wise, at least, and then with the absolute rankings too. So you really need to ask yourself, like, have they really, really benefited being in the Pac academically, or have they taken a sidestep, maybe even a small step backwards? And I'm not answering that question. I'm just providing the data. What do you guys think?
Well, let me unmute him first. All right, Immaculate, we'll let you go first. What do you think?
Yeah, these are interesting. I always kind of thought of Colorado as higher than this. I would love to see a comparison, now that I've seen this, of Colorado versus Utah versus ASU. Just saying. This is very interesting. Well done.
Can I interrupt this message really quick, Immaculate?
Mr. Monkey.
Baltimore does not approve of this graph. It is a lie.
I didn't vet this through Altimore. Tony and I didn't talk about.
Just so everybody knows, this was the very first thing I said. Is this is the anti-Altimore slide. He did not talk about this at all for an entire year, and it took a couple of bums like me and you to expose this and to show all this data that was all white noise for the last year. That's why none of this is so stupid, this stuff that we've been hearing for the last 9, 10, 11, and 12 months about what expansion should look like for the Pac-12. All right, go ahead, you. Oh, sorry, Immaculate, you can finish.
Yeah, guys, I'm not trying to, tout any conference here. I'm just trying to look at the facts, and this is just the truth. I mean, there might be other facets that we're not seeing here. Maybe there's some other benefits academically CU's seeing, but it just isn't that strong, right? It looks like a kind of sidestep or step backwards, which is just shocking for me, completely shocking. And we're just looking at CU. We haven't taken a case study of Utah. I mean, Utah's probably different because they're in the Mountain West, but this is a really interesting one.
Well, I'll just finish by saying I'll leave what I said lie just out there in the ether. But if you want to get Altimore's approval of this, I think you're going to have to add a little more color here, brother.
No, we don't care.
I'm teasing.
We are avoiding.
This is really good. It's interesting.
I've given him more airtime than he deserves already. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to say his name again. So
all right, well, I'll leave it at that then.
Here's a comment from Sticky Sports, and this is analysis that we want to know. And this is a great question, and you take note of this, that we can come back to this. I can't remember if any of our graphs actually showed this, but he's talking about the admissions numbers for Colorado before and after. I think that's a great question. We can come back and answer maybe on Twitter. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we can come back and answer that on Twitter. We talk a bit about this in the short that's coming out tomorrow. We look at really where CU's pulling their student population from, which is fascinating, and it matters because we're talking about growth and everything else. But we're talking here, you guys, how dorky do we want to go here? Because with this, I can answer that question, but I'm going to be diving into their audited financial statements. And we could get the answers for a lot of the stuff, the tuition increases and everything. I don't have a problem doing that. I do that every day for work. That's no big deal to me, but can you guys stomach that? That's the question.
These are dedicated viewers who are asking us for more data. So if you'll make note of that, we can answer it and discuss it on Twitter, and then maybe next week we can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah,
I would just say real quickly, this type of stuff is what can actually become your bread and butter.
It is. What do you mean could be?
No,
This
I'm just saying
is.
like bread and butter to like what you ride this and you just keep doing. Like,
It
this
is
kind of
going to
stuff.
be. I
All right,
told
yeah.
you that last
Yeah.
week. This is look, we're setting a standard here. The stool that you just talking about, the different legs and how they're important and bound together by money, and how these schools do things, we are going to be leaning into that hard in the next year, maybe even longer. So yeah, this is just a taste, everybody. Go ahead and put that comment up again. Did you see something there, you?
Yeah, I saw something there. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things that factor into realignment, y'all.
Right.
Your access to marijuana might be one of them too. So.
That's probably true. All right. Robert, did you want to say anything about this?
Well, it is quite interesting. I would try, if they were losing score on their academics like this for the academic spending and everything, but it still went up. Maybe it's because of the inflation and everything too. How they always inflate it every year. And other ones just went up more.
Right. Yeah, there could be a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was looking at that. And when you said their rating didn't go up, it went down. So I'm thinking it could be also what I just said.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of factors to consider here. This is just kind of throwing it out there. And the growth rates, you can see them 3% in the Big 12 era, 5.57% in the Big 12 era, 5.57, and then the 3 point something in the Pac-12. And that really is you look at the X marks the spot on that graph, left side, Big 12, right side, Pac-12. And yeah, Robert, they've gone up the whole time. It's not like they have taken like a huge step back or anything. But to me, when I hear that the big realignment drivers because of the Pac-12's academics, right? Only the academics. It's hard to really make that argument when you're just looking at CU and what's happening with the
So we've got, I'm going to mute Immaculate and Robert, and we've got Hall of Fame college sports, Jason Watkins with us. How you doing, Jason?
What's up, Jason?
What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
We're doing okay. You're a little bit jerky, just so you know, but as long as we let you talk for a period of time, I'm sure we'll get all you're saying.
Oh no, I just said, hey, what's up, guys? Hopefully this mic's working okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm driving. Okay, cool. No, yeah, I'm driving to go pick up my dog. So
be safe. Be safe on the road, my man.
Definitely. Do you just want to listen for a bit?
I mean, ask a question, I'll answer. But
I do have a question for you. So you were at Big 12 Media Days, and you were luckily, I wanted to go, but we need to work on access. But anyway, you were able to go and see all of the leaders of the new Big 12. And I know you're leaving. Oklahoma and Texas are taking off. But what was the feeling you got them there, knowing that you were sort of separated a little bit?
Well, one thing about my show is I don't feel like we're just an Oklahoma show. I mean, that's my team. Obviously, that's where but we're covering Texas Tech a lot. We're doing a lot of stuff with, we do a lot of stuff with Cody, just like you do, and so having covered the Big 12 for as long as I have, we don't plan to go anywhere. I mean, we're going to be covering the SEC also, but I do think that as far as that goes, yeah, Texas and Oklahoma are definitely odd men out, I guess you want to put it. It's probably a good thing this is the last season because, as you heard from Mike Gundy, there's no love lost there.
Right.
And then even Brett Yormark, it was really, he'd say something nice and then he'd say something that you could definitely look at as a shot. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think we had a great time. I think that they availed themselves pretty good. I mean, far be it for me to say good things about Steve Sarkisian, but I think that he took on the mantle of them being the favorites and the expectations that are there for Texas with that roster to win the thing on the way out. And he said that they have accepted that. That's something that we're going to talk about tomorrow a lot on the show, which you guys are welcome to jump on with us as well. But, I just felt like, you would expect that he'd still be making excuses. He's not. And the same goes for Brent Venables in Oklahoma. they're not okay with 6 and 7. They're not, and I think that they proved that through their recruiting and through the transfer portal as well, where they plan to go and try to win this thing on the way out. Whether or not that's gonna be allowed to happen, who knows? They're gonna need to probably get more than one holding call against a conference team all season. But that being said, the one way you can go do it is just beat them to sleep. That's one of those things you don't want to put it in the hands of the officials or anything like that. And then, not to say that I'm not a big conspiracy theorist guy. I don't think like that. But, I mean, the proof is in the pudding there that between Texas and Oklahoma, there were 4 total holding calls against Big 12 opponents a year ago. That's pretty wild. Can't think of a football game that I've watched that had 4 holding calls in total. It just.
What, in the Red River Rivalry? Was that during the game?
I'm talking about the entire conference season.
What?
Oklahoma had 1 holding call against an opponent, a Big 12 opponent, and Texas had 3. So
That's
it's the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. There's, somebody said on the show the other night they felt like that it was last year, it was less conspicuous, I guess. I think it's going to be more looked at now. Maybe they don't do it. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. And, and I'm not just saying that doesn't avail either team for not getting it done. When you're a blue blood program like Oklahoma, like Texas, you don't have excuses. You go win. And if you don't, you don't. So I think it's pretty clear what happened with Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley gutted the program. He may not have taken them all with him, but they certainly had to flip 45% of the roster. And a lot of it being on defense. There was 13 guys off of the defense that sucked anyway, just to be honest. It wasn't good already, just like USC wasn't good on defense this past season. A Heisman quarterback does a lot of good things for you, except for beat Utah. It just didn't do that. So.
Yeah, Caleb ain't going to beat Utah. Nope. Hey,
Well,
listen, he did it. He didn't.
So if I'm a betting man here and I want to get my money's worth here, best bet in the Big 12 to win the conference, who do I take?
Well, if you're looking to make a big dollar amount, I would think the third, the long shot would be probably Oklahoma because of the fact that they went 6 and 7. Now they are picked to go third. Vegas has them at 9.5. I don't know how much you would get there. At 9.5 wins, that's the over/under for them. But I would think that, I really like Texas Tech. I think that Joey McGuire is doing some things at Texas Tech that is, recruiting wise, and if they can keep Tyler Shuck healthy, it seems like they're going to be pretty solid. Now we're going to find out a little bit about them and K-State. I think K-State's to me, they're the favorite because they won it last year. Will Howard only played part of the year. And for as great as everybody talked about Max Duggan being in that championship game, Will Howard beat him.
Yeah.
And they're losing their running back, a great running back in Deuce, but they got a guy coming in from I believe he was from Florida State. He's expected to be the newcomer of the year. I don't know. I think Chris Klieman is one of the best coaches. I think that Joey has proven that he's being one of – so those 2 guys right there, even though you've got – Vegas is going to probably have Texas and Oklahoma, I would probably – do I think that Tech wins it? Probably not. But I think that they're that long shot that, I mean, if you really wanted to pile it on and then, take a flyer on them, they're probably a year out for me, but I do think that they're coming. And I think that Texas Tech's about to be a problem in that league moving forward. I would tell you.
Who's Cinderella, Jason?
Cinderella, yeah, Texas Tech. It's because of the fact that they just, they have some games where they probably should have won them last year.
Right.
They probably should have lost the Oklahoma game too. But, again, you've seen them recruit on a level that you don't see at Texas Tech. I covered Tech for a good while when I was a sports writer early in my career, and even in the Leach, and that was in the Leach years when they were, beating Texas and they still never recruited in the top 25.
Right.
It's just not something that happened. And people got to remember that Joey McGuire was the president of the Texas High School Coaches Association. That's like being the head coach at Texas, for high school coaches. And so he has connections around the state that love him. He's recruiting against guys like Oklahoma and Texas, and you don't see that. I think that if they can get it right on defense, their offense is going to be fine. They're getting Elite 11 quarterbacks every year. They got one of the top receivers in the country that seems to be choosing them over Texas even. It's not a done deal there yet. I wouldn't bet on that. But his dad did go to Texas Tech. I could see that sticking. And I just think they're doing a fantastic job, though. They're putting $200 million into the facilities around there. And it's a family atmosphere around there. Now, the question I got is, if you go in and you do something, you start contending for this Big 12 championship in Lubbock, how long do you get to keep this guy?
Right.
That's the question I would have about Tech. But he seems to be saying that he's not going anywhere. His daughter's a alum. She's a Tech person. So I like them. I think that they're really good. I'm going to tell you, I think Oklahoma's going to win the thing.
Sure.
I do. I think that their defense is vastly improved, and that's all they needed.
Right.
Offensively,
Jason, what do you think BYU stacks up?
I like BYU, man. I tend to wonder about your quarterback situation there, because I know that they didn't love him at Pitt. Maybe it was just a bad fit, but I don't know. I wonder about that. But I got to tell you, every time I hear Kalani Sitake talk, I love it, man.
You want to run through a wall. You want to run through a wall for
and
him.
They're so excited to be. That was one of the takeaways from Big 12 Media Days, was that he was just on top of the world of being, and just kind of how you guys are, Bomber, of loving to be there now, right?
Yes.
That is the exact. I mean, he's. I guess he's got the same feeling going on, it seems like, as you guys have, and so I love him. I think he's a hell of a coach. I think that you're going to get. And he talked about having a recruiting bump a bit, just in the state of Texas, because of the fact that they're coming into the Big 12. So
right.
That's a nice pipeline.
I agree 100%.
Go and get some of these guys. And believe it, and one thing that I posted a couple of guys on Twitter today that there's a lot of kids coming from Texas that are underappreciated coming out of high school. If you can find those diamond in the rough guys, kind of like what you've seen Coach Witt do with Dallas area, especially, you can win football games. And I think that's where Coach Whittingham has been smart. He stuck to his little pipeline that he had there in Dallas, in that area. Gets a lot of those quote-unquote 3-stars, but they're really good players, and they all fit the way that they do things. I think that BYU can do the same thing. I really do. I really do. And I think that they're a problem. I think the UCF, I don't like their quarterback right now, and I think they're jabbering too much for them to do much this year. Yeah. I think they're putting a big target on their back for averaging around 70th in the country in recruiting.
Right.
You go 9-5 a year ago, you have 5 losses and lose to Navy, and you're talking trash coming in. I think you're hurting yourself in that way. So I know that they may be the more talented of the 4 coming in right now. Just if you're talking about what they think. But John Rice Plumlee can't throw the ball from here to there. Right. You know what I mean? I haven't seen him throw anything. He can run, but he's going to run into some defensive teams in this conference, I think, that are gonna stop that. He's going to have to beat you with his arm. I don't know that he can do that.
The biggest challenge I think they're going to have is traveling. I just think when they start going those multiple trips going west.
Ask West Virginia.
It's a lot harder to do. Ask West Virginia, right? They got off to a good start, and then since then it's been difficult for them to maintain. And I like West Virginia. I like UCF. But I agree with you. They've put a major target on their backs for no reason, for absolutely no
they've
reason.
got big mouths. Well, they were doing it at the same time, they were talking a bunch of crap about Dylan Gabriel in Oklahoma.
Right.
You know, you're going to come in poking that bear, huh? Okay.
Jason, I've got a serious question here. Okay. Do you think the Utes will be favored to win the Big 12 this year with this Utah squad?
The answer is no.
Yes, it is.
Yes. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. I don't think that they'd be favored over Texas. They probably wouldn't. They might give them I don't know. I don't know that they favor them over Oklahoma.
No.
And I'm not saying that I don't think that they might win it, because I think that they could. The thing is that it's a different league than the Pac. And I'm not saying that the Pac is worse. I'm not saying that the Pac is better. I'm saying it's a different deal. What you see in the Big 12 and what you especially saw last year is top to bottom, this league is really good. You guys asked me about a Cinderella, not to jump off the subject, and I'm not.
Yeah.
No, you're not. We want to hear it.
Think about Kansas. They have the most electric quarterback in the country. If that guy stays healthy, why can't they win it? You know, because they've had a great success against Texas. I mean, they beat Texas 2 years in a row. They kind of, when he was out, they were a different team. But if Jalen Daniels stays healthy, I can't believe that they have him as preseason player of the year, and then they're ranked to finish 9th. That's insanity. Yeah. So, and on top of that, you have a Devin Neal as a running back there. They're going to have an electric offense, and they have one of the better coaches in the country that nobody knows about. He kind of reminds you of Coach Witt, or even, some of these guys that you don't really know that well. Like, I always think about Jeff Traylor down at UTSA, or Coach Fitz at Tulane. These are guys that nobody really knows who they are yet, but these guys are real deal coaches. If Okie Light would freaking hire one of those dudes instead of freaking keeping Gundy's dumb butt around, they might actually have a chance.
So let's talk about Utah's schedule. We'll just go through this game by game. So Florida at home, I think everybody's going to say that's a win.
They should win that. They should win that.
Baylor on the road at a very early time. It'll be 10 a.m. Mountain Time.
Win.
Yeah.
I think that's a toss-up myself.
It's at Baylor.
Yes.
It's at Baylor.
Yeah, I tell you, Baylor is one of the ones and Coach has been doing this a lot, and he is not high on Baylor at all, and Coach Aranda. And I got to tell you, I was the least impressed with his press availability of all of them. I think I see what the issue is there, that they're good and bad, but I don't know how you connect with players when you can't. Reporters that are educated don't even understand what your answers are to their questions. I don't understand how you're connecting with 18 or 19-year-old kids.
Yeah.
With philosophical, deep in the woods answers. You know what I mean? It's just weird stuff. So I'm not as big on Baylor. I would pick Utah there. I think that, hey man, you got that alpha dog playing quarterback. I like Utah a lot of weeks.
Very good. Our next week Weber State.
Weber State's not a game. UCLA in Salt Lake.
A win.
That's a win, I think.
I think it should be. But I'll tell you, do not sleep on Dante. Dante Moore is a real deal. And here's the thing about Chip's offense. It's easy. It's not that hard to pick up. And Dante's going to be very, very good. So I could see that. I see Utah probably winning that. It wouldn't surprise me that much if they slipped.
Nick Flynn.
Utah's going to absolutely lay the wood to UCLA. That's a revenge game. Last year's loss. Last time we might be playing UCLA ever, because they're going to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I'm going to be responsible for that win right there. I'm going to yell so much at that game. But,
hey, go ahead, Wild.
The W. Give me that W.
I think in the first 5 games, you're going to go 3-2, because I think you lose at Oregon State and I think you lose at Baylor.
Okay.
I don't know that they lose to Baylor. I'm going to pick them in the Baylor game because I'm just not sure about Blake Shapen either. Is the other thing I didn't throw in there. I think that guy, you expected a lot from him, and he just didn't show much. But Oregon State, I can see them losing that one, and I can see them losing UCLA too. So 3-2. I'm going to say 4-1.
Okay.
They probably win one of those.
How about USC and LA?
They're going to beat the brakes off of USC.
I don't think so. They beat them 2 years in a row. Is it 3 years, Ute? 2 or 3 years?
They won 3 games.
I'll tell you this. All they got to do
years,
is hang
right?
around. All they have to do is hang around with
Yeah,
Riley's football teams. I'm going to tell you that.
That's
They're
a
not
tough
gonna stop
game this
anybody.
year. Man.
You go
They're not
USC
gonna-
and then
listen.
Oregon back to back.
Yep.
Here's the thing about SC. I think that SC has the toughest draw in that last 5-6 weeks of the season. They start off at Notre Dame, then they have Cal, but after that it's Oregon and Washington, and then UCLA. In there somewhere is Colorado. I think that's first, maybe even before the Notre Dame game. I think the SC goes 8-4.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Please.
then-
I think they do. I'm telling you, you saw the best iteration of Lincoln Riley's football team last year. They were the biggest they were going to be. They've got they've got a yoga instructor as their strength and conditioning coach. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better.
All right.
I like this so far, Jason. I'm liking this pick 'em right here.
And then this last one that is the game is Washington in Seattle.
Yeah, I like Washington on that one.
I have
I think that
8-4. Utah's 8-4. I'm calling it now.
I've got a 10-2.
I'm gonna say
That's
I'm gonna say
insanity.
9-3, 10-2 maybe. I don't know. Do you have to play? You have to play Oregon.
Yes.
Yeah, Oregon's right after USC.
At Oregon.
No.
Yes. It goes USC, Oregon, Arizona State, and then Washington.
Yeah.
I
I
you
say
8-4.
9-3. I'm gonna go with probably 9-3.
All right. Well, if they go 9-3, they're in the championship game, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. If they go 9-3, they make it.
They're the back-to-back champions. I don't know why you would bet against them when they still got Cam, and they still got the best coach in the conference.
Right.
All
right, well-
I just
Sorry, Jason. Go ahead. Finish what you're going to say.
no, I just said. I mean, I feel like as much as I like Dan Lanning, and I think they've got good coaches at Washington and Oregon State also, but I still think Coach Witt is the best coach. I think Coach Witt's a top 3 or 4 coach in the country, period.
Yeah,
when
he is.
When you consider what he does and
I
where,
agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
It never hiccuped after Urban left. You know what I
Right.
mean? It just didn't. So I believe a lot in that guy. And when I saw Cam Rising take the hit that he took in the championship game last year, helmet flies off, he pops up and smiles at the camera. I was like, dude, this guy's insane.
He's
Yeah.
nails. There's no doubt about
I
it.
love this guy. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I just wish that fans weren't as crazy as you guys, some of you guys are about
So-
the Big 12.
your last question on the way out, Jason, because I got to let you go. Last
Got it.
question.
Yeah.
Does Colorado move after Pac-12 Media Days to the Big 12?
Oh, man, I think it's going to happen at some point. I don't know that it happens right then. I don't know what's going on at this point. It's gotten to the point where it's so ugly and gross and so much crap going back and forth, and you don't know pretty much. I mean, first of all, I do want to say this before I answer this question. You guys and your information that you've thrown out there in your last couple of weeks with the spending and stuff that puts into perspective of where this money's going. And it isn't to the damn football programs, by the way.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
Okay. This research spending versus the, athletic funding. It's not the same thing. It needs to stop being talked about. And I'm so glad that you guys have done that. I know I said that on Twitter to you guys, but seriously, you're doing a service to the rest of to these fans out there that should know better than to listen to people like Altamore.
Right.
They should know better. And I hate to say it, but as a former journalist, as a fellow journalist, Wilner and Canzano, what the hell are they doing? You know what I mean? I don't understand any of this.
Yeah.
But what I'll tell you is, in the end, I don't see how you can keep it together. I think that it seems like maybe Utah is softening a little bit. I hope it's enough, because I think that, I don't care what Greg says. I believe that without Utah, that it's really not. You're missing out if you're going to pick any of these four corner schools and not get all four.
Yeah.
Utah better be one of them, because
Right.
I think you need to replace the Red River game with a big time game like the Holy War. I really do. And I think that, and you look at Utah, and they're the closest thing you got right now to a team that you can say, hey, they could go to the playoff.
Right.
Right. With that coach and the way that they're recruiting now, because they're not recruiting all 3 stars anymore. We know that now, right?
No.
That's just my feeling. So I think that you have to do that. All due respect to Greg Swaim and everything else, I think you need all 4. Don't do 2 in UConn and all that. I don't buy into all that. I understand the basketball talk.
Right.
In the end, basketball there is some worthiness to it, and I think that what the Big 12 has to do is utilize its basketball, but I don't think you have to reach. And I think it would be a reach to go after UConn when they don't have a good football program at all, and then to leave Utah there. I can't believe that Utah would go down on the freaking Titanic when there's a life raft right
Utah's
there.
not going down on the Titanic. If multiple teams move, Utah's going to move to the Big 12. It'd be great. Utah would be perfect fit for the Big 12.
I think it is. I think that it's a better fit than it is a Pac-12 fit. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think that they've played in. I mean, think of all those years in the WAC in the Mountain West when they're playing New Mexico and all these schools that are in that region, and they're just a better fit there. It's not a West Coast team, and man, who wants to be? I mean, with the way that people are looking down on everybody else and the whole truck stop league and all that other stuff.
Right.
I mean, I get it that you should be excited about where you are. You should be, because they deserve to be in a power conference long before they got there, just like I believe BYU did, But that being said, at some point, you got to realize that league it's been shooting itself in the foot for so long.
Right. You don't have USC anymore. Everyone needs to wake up. USC is gone. USC was so critical.
And so what? And as bad as they've been lately, but yes, and now that they're gone, and UCLA, you don't even have that. And I don't think markets are as big of a deal, but I think that the fact that you don't, and the money part, I'm not as concerned about what the money cost. I know everybody keeps talking about this realignment. What's going to be the TV money? I know it has something to do with it, and I know it is important. But what I'm telling you is I'm still of the belief, like Jim Williams always says, and a lot of these guys are always saying, Bob Thompson and all them, that what matters in college football is rivalries.
Right. Brand and rivalries. Yeah.
You can sell rivalries.
Yeah.
You cannot sell a 9 o'clock on the East Coast game to the greater amount of people that love college football. You can't do it. And it's nobody's seen them. And if you're not going to be on television anyway, and you're going to put it behind a paywall or whatever that's going to end up happening with Apple, God only knows. I don't see how that works either. I just don't see it. So, and even if they somehow piece together something that works for now, I think that you'd be crazy to stay if you don't have to, because the second that Washington and Oregon get the invite to the Big Ten, they're gone. And hoping against hope that you're going to be, that the Big Ten's going to say, oh, well, maybe Utah does belong. They're not going to do that. This is not who they are. They're not going to do it with Colorado. They're not going to do it with the Arizona schools. I don't care if they got AAU status or not. It's not going to happen. It's just because they don't see themselves as the same as these state schools like that. They just don't. And I just don't, I don't. And I still feel like there's a lot of Utah fans that they may not be BYU fans, but they're still religious,
Right.
And that does not play well in either the Pac-10 or the Big Ten. It just doesn't play well within that. And that's where, as much as I think that culture doesn't really matter when you get out on the football field, it does matter within these conferences for whatever reason.
Right.
Bingo, 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 bingo. That's a little segue into our short video for tomorrow, Jason. You're gonna have to check it out because we broke it down. We looked at deep you, and you just nailed an item right there.
That was a nice lead in. Thanks for doing that, Jason. Hey, have a great night.
Hey, glad to be of service to you guys.
You bet. Always love to have you on. Thanks so much for your time, and drive safe since you're still on the road.
Check us out tomorrow, man. We'll be on at 8:30 Eastern time.
Yeah, tell everybody where to find you.
It's at CFB-pod on YouTube. You can find me at BirdieManDub on Twitter, and then just hofmedia.us. That's our website. You can find us everywhere from there.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much. It's great to see you.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Peace out. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
All right, so let's get caught up on some chats here. First, we have a super chat from Danny Wright, who says for $2. Thank you, Danny. That was a long run. We wanted to listen to Jason there. It's been a while since I've been able to get him on, so I appreciate his extended visit. But just jumping back to the academic money, he's saying, does the academic money offset a subpar PAC media deal? I think, as we've talked about the last 3 weeks in the short, especially, we'll talk about the legs of the stool. I think the media money isn't the thing. It's about the exposure and what presidents are deciding between culture and some other things that have to do with the school itself. I think that's really what's driving realignment right now. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's go back to the CU slide, if you wouldn't mind, Bomber.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me bring that back up. I apologize.
I think some people jumped in that weren't here earlier. And
right. Let's bring that up.
Here.
That's right. Let's reset what we were talking about. Go ahead.
Yep. So everybody, we talked about this a little earlier. Here's Colorado's really academic results performance in the Big 12 versus the Pac-12 eras. And one of the things as a Pac fan, I would have thought would be a huge lift for CU academically in the rankings and research spending, because that's such a priority for Pac teams. But that's not really what the facts say when you look at the rankings here. So take a look at this. To the right side of the graph is their research and development spending based on National Science Foundation data. The X marks the spot is when they entered into the Pac-12. Their growth rates in the Big 12 were lower than they were in the Pac-12 era. And plus, a lot of the rankings, university rankings in the Big 12 era were better than in the Pac-12 era, which to me, I almost fell off my chair when I saw that. Honestly, it was just a shock to me. So
now this is a research bubble that was brought by Pilgrim, Pac-12 Pilgrim, who brings this up, and it goes along with his subscriber chat, which basically shows the year-on-year average, and I'll try to make it bigger. But it's the year-on-year average. As you see later in the tree, it drops, and it dropped quite a bit in there. Do we have an explanation for why that happened for Colorado?
I'm looking at this. So it's saying for the 2020, and then we're looking at historical. So we're looking at grant money. It looks like possibly here. Total R&D. I'm not really sure exactly. Survey. I don't know where this data is coming from. I'll take a look at it.
Okay. All right. I'll take it off. Let's jump in now. Immaculate, you muted yourself. You can unmute yourself if you want and talk. Robert, you can unmute yourself as well. Oh wait, I think I there you go. Now you guys listen to Jason. He's very educated when it comes to the Big 12, and then you guys are have your own spheres of influence. What do you think about all the stuff that we've discussed tonight? Anything stand out to you?
Except for the Colorado stuff, that was very interesting.
Immaculate.
I found myself wondering, based upon what he was saying, how he feels about the SEC Media Days next year going to Texas,
right?
To Dallas, because that Texas A&M, bad word that you don't want me to say on your show,
yeah.
is going to be
go ahead, I guess.
So much fun for an Oklahoma fan who wears an upside down Texas Longhorns hat.
He does.
To sit there and watch. I'd pay for front row seats just to get all the looks on people's faces. Like, just going to be just scowls from Aggies fans. And then just these pompous looks from Texas people like, that's right, we brought the SEC to Texas, not you.
Is that, you think it's a power play though, going to Texas as the SEC now and like planting the flag there?
They've got Texas and Texas A&M.
Right.
It's ours. And we got Oklahoma, which is like, Texas light.
But they went there. They didn't go to Jerry World though. Let's be clear. They went to another venue, which is called the Omni. I've never been there, but if you look it up on Google, it's a pronounced building and whatnot, but not going to Jerry World and kind of having been blocked out there. I think that carries some weight.
Maybe. I tend to think that you can go too big of a stadium for these media days. Like it can just swim in it. Like, I didn't really like the Big 12's media days being there. It just seems small in there. I would actually go with like a little bit more intimate atmosphere for it if it was me. So that might be the case. Maybe it's just money. Who knows?
Pickles is one of our subscribers. If you want your chat to be read, we try to get to the super chats first and then the subscriber numbers. So he's a subscriber just today, by the way, and we're very grateful for that. He says academics and athletics are important to all schools, just depends on what order in the list. I think you could bring up and compare a school like Washington versus a school like Alabama. They have different priorities, right? And we just need to understand that every school doesn't have the same scale. They don't judge the same thing. And that's what we're trying to bring out in this. All things aren't equal in collegiate athletics. Anybody who tells you they are, anybody who says it's a zero-sum game, and this is the absolute answer, absolute zero to anything in college athletics, is lying to you. They have some other reason to tell you that, and that's not what we're going to do here. We'll present the data. You guys make up your own minds. He says football success feeds recruiting, which helps academics. Also, top-end academics attracts recruits. Stanford. At the same time, though, Pickles, Stanford isn't doing NIL. So how do you cross that T? I think Stanford says, we're so elite with our education. You come here, it's for the education. It's not going to be for
you
the
just
money.
brought up a massive point, Bomber. Like in the NIL era, you've got to think that the academic component might become less and less important, right?
Right.
And that's not something that we've talked a lot about, but like really, if we're going to almost semi-pro ball and like we're just paying players on the side to play for the university, and who knows what this looks like in the future, but really academics might be almost thrown out completely with sports. And we're talking about a different realignment world here, and it matters.
That's true. That's true.
There's a lot of changes.
Bill G is one of our subscribers. Unfortunately, I didn't get to it while Jason was on, but he says, Jason Watkins, sorry the Big 12 just stopped cooking the officiating to help UT and UT Norman. Yeah, that's a little shot at Texas and Oklahoma. Bill, I would look up Jason on Twitter, and you tell him that, and I'd like to be a viewer to that conversation because Jason's always entertaining. Immaculate or Robert, was there anything else that you guys wanted to get to before I start to wind this down? Before I do that really quick, I want to ask everybody who's watching to subscribe, tell your friends about the show, follow us on Twitter, and certainly on YouTube. And I'm going to be doing shows every day this week. And on Friday, I want to make sure I get this verbiage right. The fat guy from Minnesota and I are going to be doing a post-Pac-12 Media Day wrap-up show Friday afternoon, or actually Friday evening. It'll be 8 Eastern. Please be here for that. But in the lead up, I'm going to be doing a show every other day this week. So look for me tomorrow. Not sure what time. I don't want to really conflict with Jason's show, so that time may change. But every day this week, that's coming. And then subscribe if you want to be part of the family that we are building there. Robert, let's start with you. Is there anything you would like to get out tonight that you want to make sure people notice as we're heading out?
Bomber, I have a question. The Omni thing for the SEC, is that in Austin or is that in another part of Texas?
I was told it was in Dallas-Fort Worth area. I didn't look it up. I just know that it's not Jerry World. I know it's not at the stadium. Yeah. Because
if it was Austin, I would be able to go to because I live in Austin. So
right, Austin's a rockin' town, by the way. If you've never been to Austin,
I know. It's insane during game day. It's very bad.
Right, absolutely. All right, Robert. Well, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Immaculate,
No
do you have
problem.
anything else
Thanks,
you want to
Albert.
say on your way out?
Well, I would just say, like I said elsewhere, watch what's going on with this talk about Disney. And I think to Wild Oot, this might interest you. And maybe you heard it before. But if Disney is truly looking to sell ABC, like if they're looking at it as a separate entity as ESPN, like
Right.
we could sell this, we're not going to sell this, which his talks seem to be showcasing. How interesting is that? In that, what happens on the ESPN contracts? Maybe all of a sudden their contracts aren't as valuable because they can't put you on ABC, or maybe whoever takes it over has to agree to showcase that, but it won't be part of future ESPN contracts. And if they're looking to sell it to someone, there's probably a very short list of companies that can do it. I would put Apple at the top of that list of companies that could buy ABC off of Disney. And if that happens, Apple now has a main network to showcase games on. And it's already called ABC, Apple Broadcasting Company.
I like that. That's true.
That's a good point. I mean, I think the contracts would parlay into that next, the merger and acquisition right there, the Apple acquisition of ABC, ESPN, and the parent company there. So I think that everything would kind of remain static until the contracts expired, and then all of a sudden it would look a bit different based on the renegotiations. But I don't see it legally how anything would change.
No.
With that.
I don't know how it works because they're treating it as if ESPN and ABC are two different entities, even though contractually they're connected. I don't know exactly how that works, but he's talking about it that way. So that could be something that would hold up Apple's talks and any other potential contract. Like, we need to figure that out first.
Yeah.
So, not saying that's the case, but just throwing that out there. That could be a part of it.
Immaculate, sing with me here. Jeff Fuller has joined us. He's late, by the way. Jeff, where you been? What the hell? Come on, man. Anyway,
come on, Jeff, you gotta get
I know you has to go. Maybe
you gotta go. Jeff, ask
leave.
that question quick. If I can answer it,
But Jeff, let's get your question in here, and if you're still with us, please pay attention because we've been trying to get Jeff for a week or so. So, Jeff, what do you got for us tonight? Can you hear me? Are you on mute?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't
Okay.
know. I'm getting a reverb.
Oh, I don't know.
Jeff, do you want to talk about the research spending? You want to talk about Colorado?
Yeah,
we're
man,
we're not hearing reverb. Just so you know, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just. I don't know why I'm hearing you in
well,
two different times.
Why don't you just mute yourself? Mute us and just talk, and we'll hear you.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, just wanted to join in and looks like that stuff's spot on. I had done an early analysis. I tweeted out something about it, and I think I shared that in a little DM with y'all.
You did. I'm going to try to bring that over.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's just. Again, it goes against what everybody, I think you said that Tony Altomare wouldn't love that data. I think when I sent that out, a lot of people freaked out about it, and I didn't push it any further. I'm glad you guys dug deeper on it. And, but I guess it's one of those things that it's easy to say that the PAC is a great academic conference and being part of the PAC is great for your academics. But yeah, the data doesn't, I'm not saying the PAC's bad for your academics, but looking at the trend, and maybe it's just a regression to the mean. Maybe, Colorado and Utah caught the Pac-12's attention or Pac-10's attention at that time with their surging in their research. And, and when they joined, they just couldn't maintain those high degrees of growth because they both were really on, spiking up. And I put Utah State here as a comparison of what they've done since they joined the Mountain West Conference. So, I obviously in this tweet, thanks for putting it up. They haven't joined the PAC. I'm just looking at the comparison and the times. And Utah State's in the Mountain West Conference is really spiked. Utah was really spiking in the University of Utah is really spiking while they were members of the Mountain West Conference. It's that 78% growth or 79% growth, with Utah State over 100% growth in the last decade and a half. So yeah, it's just, and then I think it's important to look at the all institutions average growth. That's one thing I included here is, just looking at all the NSF dollars.
Now, when you say all institutions, do you mean all the institutions in that conference?
No, that's everybody in the nation.
Oh, okay.
That's
So you're saying
NSF.
40%, 46% growth
Was the average.
was the average before the pack, and then after the pack changed, it dropped to 37.
Yeah, so those are just the national average growth rates of
Okay.
all the research dollars.
Okay.
And that's compiling, and there may have been more institutions in later, but that's, if you look at the NSF data, there's one sort of tabulation that's like all of our money that we sent out, and it doesn't, then it specifies each institution, individually, but there is a yearly figure for their total. So between 2004 to 2011, the average growth dollars went up 46%. So you could say that that's sort of the inflationary rate of research dollars. So if you're above that, you're doing better than average. If you're below that, you're doing worse than average.
What do you account for the drop? Because we've talked about the drop several on different shows, even on our shorts, but nobody has been able to give an explanation. Why was there a drop for both Colorado and Utah?
Again, it's not a drop; it's a slowing. Oh, now there's a drop in the academic ranking for Colorado, as while you pointed out. Now, the University of Utah, they've gone up. Okay, you're talking about the ranking of the
right
among research dollars.
Right.
Yeah, those were pretty much par for the course for both institutions. There was definitely a drop there for a while for Utah, and then it came back up. I don't know if anyone that that's above my pay grade, and
right.
I'm sure the people at the institutions know, the ones who run their budgets and are on the committees know why it dipped and why it came back. It was way before COVID, but I really don't know why Utah dipped so far down and then sort of came back. But yeah, both institutions, Colorado and Utah, are about at the same rank nationally in research dollars as they were when they joined the Pac-12. So that seems to go against what a lot of people would have us believe, especially the graph man.
Right. So let's talk about this, because this is interesting. We had a question earlier before you joined about the full-time graduate students, and we're obviously looking at Utah here. The rank was 47. What, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago for Utah? It was 44 in 2012. So it's actually dropped.
Yeah, in the total number of again, that's a ranking, so that
right.
I'm sure they have more. I think if you look at the raw numbers there, they have more and more graduate students now than before, by quite a bit. I think we're looking at 555 to 691, but
right.
Again, there were enough institutions that have a higher number of full-time graduate students as Utah now than that 691, and so they've dropped 3 spots in their rank, even though they've improved over time. Now that number has not gone up. That number has not gone up. If you look at it since 2015, it's actually been pretty much popping around right around 690 since 2015. Again, I don't know why that is. If they're looking to expand their programs and just not doing it, they're probably have met some of their growth metrics and are fine with where they're at right now.
I think I find that extremely interesting. Now, why don't we have a graduates number here for Colorado?
I mean, that there is a that's interesting. Again, this is
raw data. I realize that.
Yeah, all you're doing from
sure.
From NSF's data. If you click on individual institutions, it'll come up this way. And I don't know why they didn't report.
That's interesting, because that was the question, was specifically about Colorado. I'm curious how how they'd gone up or gone down compared to before they joined the Pac-12. So it's not there. It's
note too here for what we're talking about is just the total R&D expenditures. That's your cursor highlighting the 52 rank.
Right.
they're all different tiers. I mean, these are all different rankings. So earned doctorates, one ranking, full-time
Of
graduate
course.
students. So when
Yeah.
we're talking about research, again, it's just this one bucket of total R&D expenditures. It's kind of its own standalone 3 columns. So
Right.
that's the biggest one for this conversation we're talking about. We're not talking about grad student numbers or doctorate numbers. We're just talking about the research dollars.
Yeah, and it's just different metrics that the NSF tracks and has to be reported, apparently. And it's getting really into the weeds, and maybe some of these other data points might give us a hint into some of the other data points. But again, we're getting really into the weeds with minutia of some of this stuff. And
Absolutely.
probably the viewers are dropping like crazy looking at this.
Actually, no, we've gone up again. So it goes up and down depending on what we're talking about.
Hey, Bomber, I've got to bounce, okay? So you
right,
guys
yeah.
keep
Do you want to say anything else before you go?
The one thing that's going to change everything, though, and this just came to me in this discussion today, is really the NIL dollars. That's going to change everything in this game of realignment completely, because the academics are going to become less important, I think, if NIL takes over and over and over like we assume it's going to.
Right.
If there's any type of contract from the school and stuff, I think that the academic part's going to become less and less important. Honestly, that's big. That's huge for realignment, thinking about realignment for the future. So just kind of thought about that during the show because that came up. So big thought there. Keep that one in mind, okay?
Will do.
All right, take care.
All right, we'll see you later.
Have a good
I
night.
did have one other question for you, Jeff. And
Yeah, go
Immaculate,
ahead.
if you have questions, Jeff's our data guy.
Yeah, I see
very
that.
very reliable, and he doesn't have an agenda. Just letting you know. When we're talking about Colorado, and you know all the data on the back end, you've looked at it for over a year. What is your tip of the hat right now? Do you think they're leaning towards leaving, or what's your opinion on whether they stand fast with the Pac-12 or not?
Well, either they have been the most aggressive about making sure that they do not get a diluted share of the Pac-12 media deal, that they are pushing pushing hard on every lever they can push to make sure that they get it just as much as everyone else. Stanford, Utah, they may be told that, hey, you're not bringing in any money, you're not going to bowls, your team's not going far in the tournament, you're just taking our money and aren't providing any. They've probably been hearing that for several years, and so they're probably being told they need a smaller share. So maybe this is all just an elaborate play to make sure they get as much as they can. My vibe is that maybe it's more, but do they have the guts to pull the lever and be the first one to leave? I don't understand why people think it's an aggressive Big 12 and the Colorado could kill the Pac-12. We all know that the Pac-12 is wounded and bleeding out and just waiting to die. It's the question is, does it happen in the next couple of years, or does it happen in 4 to 6 years? So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they leave, but I still think inertia is a powerful thing, and it seems like the smart money seems to say nothing will probably change. We'll see.
What do you think, Immaculate? You have questions for Jeff?
Yeah, all of this research numbers, and I think someone had a question or a comment earlier that made me think about academics, like not just how does research affect this, but honestly, where do these universities stand to gain from an academic perspective with some of these entries? Like if you look at USC and UCLA as joining the Big Ten, something you may not think about is there's a lot of people from California that are going to be introduced to Big Ten schools and to possibly going to school there. There's a lot of people there. And I'm not saying it's a lot of the picture or a lot of the pie graph, but I'd be curious to see where academic numbers have gone after certain exits and entries, like with Colorado too, as well, in order to go along with that. But interesting, like your percentages that you showed were definitely telling. But would you say that is more important, or would you say the overall number increase? Like with Utah State had a huge percentage increase, but its increase was probably, what would you say, is close to about the same as Colorado's?
As far as in raw dollars,
raw numbers, yeah.
probably about that. I mean, I wasn't looking at raw dollars. I was looking at percentages.
Absolutely.
And the size of the institutions, you're starting with a much smaller pie, and you have to really increase the pie. That's a harder thing to do. From what I understand, the Utah State got some pretty big military contracts, and that was the lion's share of their of their hundreds of millions of dollars of increase. So it may have just spiked up really quickly. Some people who saw those numbers said, "Oh, that was just because of this," and that's not long-standing. And again, I'm just looking at NSF data, and I don't know the history at each institution. So I do think it's important, though, looking at where do these places look to get their students. We've long been told that Colorado really looks to California to get its students, student body. Getting that out of state tuition is really, really important to, really boost. That's another way of getting, it's not research dollars, but that's a lot of extra money that the university brings in that it gets to spend somehow, because it doesn't truly cost twice as much to educate an out-of-state student as it does an in-state student.
Absolutely.
But, a lot of these colleges also are starting to say, hey, we need to put a limit on how many out-of-staters can come. And, where is the country growing right now? It's not California. I mean, California's growth rates have really, really dropped. And the growth that's happening is largely, immigrants or refugees or other people. A lot of the growth is happening in Texas, in Florida, and, the South and the Midwest. That's just where a lot of the growth is happening. It's not in the Northeast. It's not on the West Coast. The Intermountain West is still growing a lot. Utah, Idaho are always high on the growth rates. But California used to be there, but it's really dropped off, and that may be a temporary thing from COVID and their current sort of policies. But if they're, we heard Robbins, I think the Arizona president, say he was excited about the idea of looking to Texas as a source of students. I think that may be the new California, of where exporting students may be coming from Texas.
Yeah. And California is definitely going down, but it's still huge. And if people are looking to leave there, then you're providing them an option, I guess you could say.
That's the exit strategy.
Yep. And interesting. Oh, sorry. You had something?
No, I was just going to say hi to a couple guys that were late coming in. BR is one of the subscribers. He's in with us. Earl Carr's here. Hey, Earl. Nice to see you. I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're recognizing our subscribers that have joined. I'm really behind on all these notes, by the way. There's no way I can catch up. There's so many. Anyway, Immaculate, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think what his graph was good at showing is, and what I think is the truth, but this is my bias. I think the most valuable aspect of joining a conference in terms of academics or research especially is the introduction. Like the new folks that you get introduced to. But once you get that, it kind of becomes up to you and what you do with it. Like, do you make the right connections? Do you not make the right connections? Like Utah State, they moved up in the world when they moved into the Mountain West in terms of who they were introduced to and what connections they might have had. And they obviously made good on it, because even though their raw data was the same, that shows just how much they improved in that case, like adding new facilities and whatnot. So, yeah, that joining the pack basically may not actually be that big of a deal, and leaving it probably wouldn't hurt you any worse.
I think it's just a hassle of changing conferences at this point. You got ego and a lot of other non-technical reasons, right? It has nothing to do with the nuts and bolts. It's just, hey, I just don't want to go. Just a rowdy dude from South Carolina. Thanks for being here. Long time no see, by the way. He gives us a $5 super chat. He says, Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Duke would pair amazingly in the Eastern schools with Big 12 if the ACC grant of rights is broken. You guys don't disagree with that, right?
Oh, that would be a home run. I think Louisville is probably the only one that, probably wouldn't get a call up from either the big, to the Big Ten. I think those other three are definitely a chance. Duke, a lot of people pair them with North Carolina, but that's Pitt and Virginia Tech are definitely on the list, I think, for the Big Ten. But Boy, that'd be amazing to get those schools into the Big 12. I'd be starting to be getting a huge conference. I'd be getting up near 20 if we get some Pac-12 schools and add some of those ACC leftovers.
Right. Up North War Dogs, I'm not sure I'm familiar with you, so if you're new to the show, please subscribe. It's great to see you here. We're always happy to have more people joining the family. He asked a question, and this would be go to the panel. On his question, give me 5 to 10 reasons a Pac team goes to the Big 12. I can give you 5 right off the bat. I think specifically if we're talking about Colorado, it's more regional. They're back with recent alliances that they had just 13 years ago. They're used to playing all these teams in the Plain States and definitely in Texas. I think they're more culturally aligned with that part of the country. Yes, they have been getting a lot of people from California, but I don't think it drives the bus. That's just my opinion. I think it's cheaper for them if they are doing travel up and down the Plain States than it is to go always to the coast, since you're the outlier in your current conference. And the last thing is, I think you're more competitive. The Big 12 is a more competitive conference. And if you're the Colorado Buffaloes, you missed it at the beginning of the show. We put up what your production was from the beginning before you joined the Big 12 or Pac-12 and after you left the Big 12. And you guys, if you're talking about Colorado, you've been nothing in the Pac-12 for the last 13 years. Why not come back where you're more competitive? And there's better ball being played top to bottom. That would be my 5 reasons. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
Jeff, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, if you're any school, I think it depends on what the deal will be. But you may have listed this and I missed it. But exposure's got to be like.
I didn't say exposure. Yep.
You did say it.
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
Oh, you didn't.
Yeah,
So,
that's a big one. Yeah.
I mean, being on ESPN and Fox and being on all the talk shows and Big Noon,
right.
Opportunity to be on game day or Big Noon Saturday, that's huge, having that exposure. And yes, those programs will go anywhere in the nation that they can. If that's where the big games are, even if they're not carrying the games, sometimes they'll go to those sites. But exposure, I mean, if you're going to be on linear or on less well-known linear like CW or Ion or USA Network or wherever it may be, or largely streaming, that exposure, that's got to scare the heck out of you. That is we're talking about growing alumni bases and admissions, getting more people to apply and be excited about, you just want the exposure, and the recruits want that. The recruits' families want that. So I think that's got to be the number one reason. I think that's even more important than, if there is a couple $1 million difference one way or the other. I don't think anyone moves just for that, $5 million difference, higher or lower from one conference to another. But if you're going to be a little bit lower in the money and a lot lower on the exposure, that equation starts to tilt strongly towards making a long-term better play for your university and your exposure, and just getting out the door, not being the last ones there, leaving the light on. I mean, if you're the last ones closing up the Pac-12, you're really, what do they say? Beggars can't be choosers.
Right.
You're not in a strong negotiating position to get into the next conference. You're going to be taking a really decreased payout for a long time if
right.
you're, some of the last schools out the door.
Immaculate?
I would probably go into something that doesn't get talked about much, but that's demographics. You look at the demographics of the PAC geographic footprint when Colorado joined the PAC versus the demographics of that conference now. It's a vast difference. It's a big difference. And when you look at the demographics of the Big 12 footprint then versus the demographics of the Big 12 footprint now, including the new schools, that's also a much different picture. So I would say the change in demographics and culture even of the time is a pretty good reason for Colorado to look at maybe going back east instead of looking west, where all numbers are down, not great economic indicators. Just overall, the picture has changed. And I would say now is a good time to use the position where you're the one school seriously thinking about going to the Big 12, use that in your favor. But I think the indicators are pretty clear that going east is probably a good idea right now.
Up North War Dog, subscribe. Thank you so much, man. I haven't seen the alert come through. Otherwise, I'd highlight it. But once it does, I'll make sure everybody sees it. And I wanted to make sure that I got to this from just a rowdy dude. I was late to his super chat, so I apologize about that. But I think this is a good point. We talked about research dollars and USF, the new energy around that program, the new stadium, other stuff that's going on. What do you guys think about USF added to UCF? I actually think maybe not this round, but the next round that could happen.
Well, as I told you earlier, just real quick, I actually look at USF as a potential for that largely expanded SEC that I'm pointing to in the future.
Yeah, you have said
so
that, yeah.
I would definitely, like, I think someone even said something about that earlier, and I said USF well over Colorado State. I think someone was trying to say Colorado State is what they should look at. But I would go USF probably for sure, if possible. I would go USF over Connecticut, to be honest. Just to grab that extra spot in Florida. It's an extra trip to Florida, growing state, money. Tampa is a great location. The school just earned AAU status.
Yeah. And I think there's something to that as far as if you're thinking like the Big 12 thing, like the Big 10 things, where large media markets, AAU status, larger alumni bases, I think that makes sense. I think it might be an interesting thing to look at. It's sort of like BYU and Utah, where you have sort of two strong alumni bases, two sort of rivals that are very close. Yes, Tampa and Orlando are both very large markets in and of themselves, but they're very close and there's a lot of overlap between them. Are you diluting, would you have more bang for your buck by getting, adding a new state or adding a new footprint? For the Big 12, maybe it doesn't make as much sense as, if USF goes on some amazing runs and, makes some noise, gets to the playoff and really elevates their sports, I think that's important. A lot of these, Utah, TCU, them moving to P5 conferences, it was followed by, strong runs. UCF and Cincinnati, same thing. Houston did have a little bit of a spike there, but, they're just in such a huge market and have so much upside that I think they were added for that reason. We really haven't seen anyone move up to a P5 conference that hasn't really been, nationally relevant to some degree. And Florida just hasn't been, South Florida hasn't been that in decades at this point, I think.
I think it's just starting, right? They're just saying the potential is there because of the market. And but nobody's talking about, I think, today.
No,
I think Immaculate's talking down the road.
Yeah, like well down the road. But I would,
SEC.
as the Big 12, I'd maybe think about jumping on that if that's what you looked at, because what USF does for you is it doubles the amount of home games in Florida.
Right.
Doubles the amount that you get looked at there. And Florida is probably now the number 2 state for recruits after Texas.
Right.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I'm almost wondering, is it in the long-term best interest of the Big 12 to hope for certain brands not to really break out? UCF, is that sleeping giant with such a large alumni base. If they're regular in the playoffs and making deep runs, if they keep elevating their academic profile, they get AAU status. Hey, they're looking really attractive to the SEC or the Big 10. And then they'd be lost to the Big 12.
Right.
I'm here to argue that BYU, Big 12 fans should want BYU to be their biggest brand because nobody else wants us.
I think you want BYU to be the big brand, not because they want to be the big man on the block, but because we bring a massive amount of attention to all these other schools. I've seen multiple people have said nationally, and especially Big 12 people, that are like, do we care about BYU by itself? No, probably not that big of a deal. But because everywhere we go, we pack stadiums and we're watching televisions when we're in those stadiums and playing those league games. And then we're also watching the other games in the league.
Sure.
That's where the value add of a BYU
And yeah,
really
but
comes
we're
in.
not going to. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma are doing that in spades right now. For
Yeah,
the
but
Big
we're not
12.
comparing.
We're not
against-
going to replace that.
We're not trying. We're not saying
I
that we
think the
are. Though,
numbers
Jeff.
are going to go down as far as
Yeah,
other.
But Jeff's no. Wait a second. I'm not. Hang on. Let's talk about this. I don't agree with that because Texas and Oklahoma fans weren't watching other Big 12 games.
Oh yeah, they are.
No, they don't care about any. They only want to watch Texas and
What?
Oklahoma games. I've talked to
Dude,
Jason Watkins about this, and he says, I don't. Why do I care if Iowa State's playing against Oklahoma State? They just need to. They just want to be the best
There's a lot
team
of
in the
them that
league.
care. There's a lot of them.
Okay, we can agree
the
to
true
disagree.
fans, if their ranking or their trip to the Big 12 title games on the line, they're going to be watching that.
Okay, we're gonna have to see. Let's see how the numbers go.
But what I was saying is, if Oklahoma State they win a couple national championships, or UCF win a couple national championships,
right?
They're gone. If BYU can maybe win one or go to the playoffs a few times, and we're not going to be that attractive to other conferences. So
I don't know.
It's in the Big 12's long-term best interest to have BYU be successful, over maybe some other programs that may get wandering eyes. I don't know.
Interesting.
Just throwing that out there.
We'll have to see. I'll agree to disagree with you. It's okay.
That's okay.
Tony, I need to know how to Tony phonetically. I don't know how to say your last name. Wolashin, I guess. Who's a frequent viewer. He's not a subscriber, but I definitely like his input. We were talking earlier about teams that the Big 12 could pick up out east, and Louisville's got good TV ratings, and I believe media partners are interested in them. They would be somebody that the Big 12 would look at, right? If the ACC blew up.
100.
Yeah. Okay. I'd take that for granted. Sergeant Pickle says Big 12 is more competitive top to bottom, but ask Pac fans how they turned out the last few years. You eat your own. TCU had an outstanding season. I don't think that's right, Pickles. The Pac-12 has been known to eat their own. That hasn't been the MO for the Big 12.
I think that's what the Big 12 is going to become.
It may be, yeah.
And I don't think
it hasn't been, though. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But and it's going to be different in the future, in my opinion, is that eating your own isn't going to knock you out of it. That's one of the biggest reasons for why I think the change is coming that I think is coming. It's because of conferences that have knocked themselves out. That's why DAQs are the future. So
and the big reason the Pac-12 hasn't, we say they eat their own all the time, but if you look, it's really in the out of conference that they've really, they've not shined in out of conference or in the bowl season.
Right.
New Year, you look at their record in New Year's Six bowls, and it's really, really bad. I think it's like 2-7 over the last 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's without even making the playoffs. So you have the slotting thing where the top teams from each conference go to the playoffs, and then like Utah played the second place Ohio State 2 years ago, and the third place Penn State 2 years ago or last year. And so even though they're slotting down their weaker teams to play against the champions, they're still not winning those New Year's Six games. And I think that's been the bigger issue for the Pac-10, Pac-12 over the last decade or so. Is yes, they just as soon as they're climbing up, they'll get beaten by someone else. But yeah, and maybe we'll see that in the Big 12 of more eating our own. But we'll see how it plays out. But the Big 12 has had 4 different teams, 6 different teams, I think, make the Big 12 championship game over the last 3 years. So and I think 2 of those teams have made the playoffs. And over the last 3 years, I think did Oklahoma make it 3 years ago? I'm trying to remember. They always lose when they
always lose, so who cares? Yeah, that's kind of been. John Peterson says, by the way, a new viewer, if you're just new to the show, I try to recognize you. I love seeing new names. Please consider becoming a subscriber. If you're a subscriber, I really try to get to your comments as much as I can. Or you can do a super chat if you want to do a one-off. I'm okay with those too. John Peterson says USF has struggled with strategic leadership. I'm not sure they have fully woken up to the importance of competing at the Big 12 level. Don't they have aspirations bigger than the Big 12? I thought they did. I thought I'd read that. Yeah. with the AAU and all that
You got to
other
crawl
nonsense.
before you can walk.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They got AAU and they were talking. I know I saw articles that said, "Oh, we're ready to make the big jump to the Big Ten."
I know they're building a new
that.
stadium, and Tony in chat said that it's scheduled to be done in 2026.
Right.
Getting out of an NFL stadium and having your own on-campus stadium will be a big deal for them, in my opinion.
I agree. BR, who's obviously Oklahoma State, he disagrees with me. He says he lives in Oklahoma and OU fans watch other games. I've heard the opposite. I've heard there's disdain for these other games, but maybe I'm wrong.
Got an N of one. You talk to your one YouTuber who wears a Longhorn or horns down shirt.
That's not true. It wasn't just Jason. It's not true.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot I've seen. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm probably wrong. It's fine. I admit when I'm wrong. Patrick's in the house, and he says ACC gets poached, then will not be a power conference moving forward. I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
So there's a strong similarity between SEC fans and Big 12 fans, you know, and maybe it's because we don't have anything else to do, but you know, I love just watching football as much as I can all day long. And I think most SEC fans and most, you know, Big 12 fans, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, you know, Iowa State fans, I think they just love football. A lot of the Big 10 is that way as well. You just love football and you watch it as much as you can. You watch your conference, your team first, your conference second, and any other relevant games. And you watch till you fall asleep.
Sergeant Pickles says Pac has an excellent non-conference last year, and we're still written off. Perception becomes reality if your big brands don't. Well, I know Utah hasn't won one since 2017, a P5. Out of conference has to be P5 to matter. Yeah. I don't know about the rest of the games, though. I didn't track them last
Utah.
Year.
I mean, Oregon got killed by Georgia. Utah lost to Florida.
Right. Those are the really big games.
Yeah, I mean, those are the ones I remember. But
yeah, the only ones anybody remembers, I think. Just an update up north, War Dogs. I haven't seen your subscription come through, so you might want to double check on that. I was going to highlight it, but I just haven't seen it come on the show for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. A couple last comments, and then I think we're going to wrap this up. This has been fantastic today. Tony Lawson says Minnesota was scheduled to play BYU in 2020 and 2025. COVID canceled the first game. And then BYU had to make room because they joined the Big 12. I was looking forward to that Minnesota game in 2020. I don't know if Jeff was, but I was actually looking forward to that because Minnesota was good. And I wanted to see how BYU was going to do against them. That was going to be a ranked game, and I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Hey, my battery is about to kick off.
All right. Yep. I think we're about done. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. Thanks for chiming in here at the end.
Good stuff, Jeff.
That's right. Hang loose. We'll talk to you later.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. Pickles has the last note, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Pac has an excellent. Oh, that's the last one. Okay. So everybody knows I'm going to be doing live shows every day this week. I'm going to do one tomorrow night. I'm not sure the time, so I'll send out that notification. Obviously, you're all welcome to come back. I love seeing everybody. Patrick came in at the end. Dirty South Scout came in. Aaron Adams. What's he say here? Curious to think what you guys think Colorado will bring to the Big 12. I just think they just get back to what they were doing before. I think they just get back to what they're doing before. I don't think there's any difference to that. They just get back to form and they start playing actually Big 12, big football. Dion will help that. Conundrum says, go Hawks. If you're talking about Seahawks, absolutely. This season, baby. We're back. NFC Championship game. In fact, Pickles, I know, is sitting there too. Last night, I have Xfinity. And it records all Seattle games. And, you know, the ones I always delete are the ones against the Patriots. But last night it had the Packers NFC Championship game in 2014. And I watched that again. And that was just amazing that we were able to come back and win that game. I wasn't at that one. I was at a game earlier in the year. And, yeah, I missed Seahawks football. Anyway, so everybody look for me tomorrow. Immaculate, thanks for sticking around. Love having you here.
Appreciate
you're
you
obviously invited tomorrow, and everybody else, look for me tomorrow. Just look for the reminder, and then just a big reminder on Friday, July 21st. I'm calling it Pac-12 Armageddon Day. Me and the fat guy from Minnesota. Me and the fat guy from Minnesota are going to be co-hosting a show, and we're going to be talking all about the Pac-12 and kind of next steps. So that'll be a lot of fun. Everybody else have a great night. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.